This video is going to show us some operations on functions. Basically going to be given two functions and asked to do your basic arithmetic operations: add, subtract, multiply, and divide. The first thing you always want to do is you want to state the domain of each function individually, and then once you've finished the operation, state the domain of the overall function. Here we're adding functions f and g together, and it's just a simple matter of combining like terms, and then we see at the very end it's still a linear function. Next, we're basically going to perform subtraction. Notice that you're going to have to distribute the negative sign to the following set of parentheses in order to accurately combine like terms. Next, we're going to be multiplying the two functions together. Once you've put them together, now you notice that it's going to be a simple FOIL type process. So you're just going to go through and you're going to FOIL the two expressions together and simplify and combine like terms. Yes, and please notice that is a multiplication symbol, not a composition symbol. Now we're going to look at the quotient of f and g. Since there's a variable in the denominator, we have to list the restriction and what value of x needs to be avoided. Notice here that the domain of x cannot equal 2/3. This is an example using number 7 from your textbook. They give us the function f of x and g of x. Go ahead and state the domain restrictions of each individual function. So the domain of the function f, x can't be 0, and the domain of the function g, x can't be 0 either. As we begin to perform the operations, notice that we're actually going to be involved with dealing with fractions. So all of those rules apply. You have to have a common denominator. Those two there, 1 plus 2 over x, we're going to get a common denominator of x and then write out the final sum. Notice here that x cannot equal 0 either for the overall function. Next, we're going to look at the difference of these two functions. Just like with addition, you have to have a common denominator here. These are the two terms that cancel out, and you're just left with the fact that f minus g is 1. Now we're going to find the product of the two functions, f times g. Again, this is not a composite notation, this is just multiplication. So when we do the distributive property there, we end up with the variables in the denominator and still getting a common denominator. We work our way through that. So x squared is the common denominator, and x cannot equal 0. Now for the quotient. This one is going to be a little different. Normally we have waited until the end to state the domain of the overall function itself after the mathematical operation has been performed. Excuse me. But we're going to go ahead and do all of the math and get this looking like it should at the very end, dealing with like terms and whatnot. Notice at the very end the quotient actually appears to be a linear function. Well, we have to go all the way back to the very beginning in order to determine the domain and restrictions on this function. As you see here, you have x in the denominator of the numerator and the overall denominator. Therefore, we can't let x equal 0 in order for the rest of this to actually exist. So we have to use that in our restriction for the domain of the overall quotient of f and g.